Thanks a lot, Matthias. You can actually go and sit down if you would like. So my name's Jonathan, and I'm going to be hosting some of the panels today, aka the wooden bow tie guy. I would like to make you aware of two things. One, there's the Chainlink workshop starting now. So if that's something that any of you wanted to go to, now's the chance. If you want to stay here, also cool. One thing, yeah, on the 5th floor, very important. One thing that is very important about the panels and also about the rest of the day, especially on this stage, is there's a Slido. So you can go to that link right there. You can put in the code, and that will allow you to ask questions. And what's going to happen is while the panel's ongoing, I'm going to be looking at those questions. I can either try to slip them in straight away, or towards the end of every panel, I'll try and make sure and cover the most upvoted questions. So this is a collaborative experience. Imagine it a little bit like Reddit, and we'll try and get and cover those topics. So without further ado, I'd like to move on to the first panel, which is securing DeFi. We already have Matthias. You guys already know him. So I'd like to invite Andrey up to the stage, woo, as well as Ricky. Hey, Ricky. I'm going to sit here, and we also have Robert. Thanks a lot, guys. Yeah, you can, take it easy. Yeah, there should be a water also behind there as well. So, guys, thanks a lot for being here today. Thanks a lot for being here after rave as well. I know maybe you guys went, I'm not sure. Anyone go? Okay, there we go. Responsible humans. So yeah, for the next half an hour or so, we're going to be just going through some questions. And obviously, because there's actually 4 of you on this panel, you know, if you feel like you don't have any value to give to any of the questions, then you also don't have to answer. It's okay. No stress. Let's just jump into the first question. We all know that hacks are happening, right? Matthias just explained that, and yeah, it's an important topic. What do you think that the ecosystem can do more of to prevent these hacks from happening in the future?
Sure. Can any of us just jump in? All right. A year and a half ago, I guess I would have said, further focus on bug bounties and further focus on users demanding audits. And we're continuing to improve in all of those areas. I think active security, new novel bug bounty methods, all of those coming up will be very helpful. But at this point, I also think we have to come to the conclusion that we can't always prevent them. There will be nothing we can do to always prevent hacks. And really getting covered against hacks is an important part, that when they do happen, everyone's still safe. No one loses funds.
I think it's also part of it is just like, it's still early, and it's also just a matter of like education and awareness, because there's this thing called hacks, but you know, there's all these different types of hacks. Like, your retail user might think that if he or she loses his or her private key or gets phished, they call that a hack, versus I think, similar to what Robert just mentioned, like we would focus more on like the smart contract events and exploits, versus like in the industry, everything's just colloquially referred to as a hack, when in fact there's this whole gamut of things that can happen to your funds.
I do believe in the market, and I do believe that it should be a market who is putting, check and balances. So if there is a market of hackers, let's say, so they're always going to try to hack. So we don't know where they are, it's going to be kind of market. So it should be market of protection, or market that resists. And I believe only market mechanisms can prevent us. So we cannot say, okay, there's going to be a mandatory audit, because it's also hackable, and any system is hackable. But if we say, okay, there is a market, there is a price of the risk, and if you assess it high, then it's going to be high, then probably you need to work out and make it low, increase quality, and so on and so on. These type of mechanisms, that's mostly what I believe in the long term.
I just want to add one thing. I think in this case, thinking about a common goods approach is also very valuable, because it can be very devastating for someone to lose their private key with $1,000 value in it. And that is not something which anyone can really follow up. It's not something where the governments, the police can help. They don't have the technical capabilities. As was already mentioned, we think of hacks as smart contract hacks. We think of hacks as hacks when they exceed usually something significant. So usually that's 7 digits plus nowadays. And having this base level security provided, which totally doesn't exist today, of some groups, some incentives, which not through insurance, but through active enforcement tries to help recover those funds and to some degree increase the stakes significantly, which hackers today have, that would already, I think, help a lot to like prevent the long tail of hacks, phishing, skimming, all of these things.
And I want to add on to Andrey, I guess. I guess I want to kind of disagree, because panels need more of that, I think.
Hey.
I think markets can be super irrational, and markets don't always know, well, never know what's going to happen. Our model really does more of a risk-sharing alternative, where people share a loss when it occurs. People pool their tokens. If a loss happens, everyone pitches in to pay them back. I think there are a lot more DeFi native models like that that can be used, and we can disregard markets for a lot of things like insurance or risk sharing.
Thanks so much. If the markets are irrational, yeah, they are. Sometimes they are. But show me this market, so I'm going to jump in with the money. I'm going to make it rational, and I'm going to make myself rich. That's how it works. So, and that's why I say I believe it in the long term. So when everything is a little bit more mature, so then this mechanism will work. Don't you think so?
I don't think so with insurance specifically, with coverage specifically. I think trying to price that risk in an industry such as this is nearly impossible. I don't think people really understand. With our data from last year, the worst case scenarios were 0.25% cost for users for full coverage. But if you're trying to guess at risk and you lower it that much, and so a black swan event happens, you're screwed in that case. So traditional markets, stock markets, something like that, maybe are much more rational, but for something where you really have to be telling the future and preparing for something you have no clue how it's going to go, I think they're much better alternatives.
Well, okay. Let me not take the whole panel, but I just want to make an example. If you make a contract, which is for insurance contract, CDS contract, whatever it is, and then it covers certain smart contract hack. If it's if it's too expensive, then I'm gonna sell it basically, and I'm gonna be rich, and I'm gonna sell it as much as I can. If it's too cheap, then I'm gonna buy it, and market price should be somewhere around. So that there is, like, if it's very simple, there is no way around. Of course, there are technicalities, but let's not discuss all the panel. That's kind of my idea. So.
Yeah, I think at 11 o'clock, there's also going to be a lot of discussion about insurance with DeFi. So the next question I have is, particularly when it comes to securing DeFi, as people that are working in the space, in the security space, what are kind of tips that you would give to people about securing DeFi, or kind of what do you wish more people that are building DeFi protocols would be aware of?
I had a lot in the talk, so I'll leave it to the others to add theirs.
I think composability is one of the biggest things. I think watching out how your contract interacts with other contracts is currently and will continue to be the biggest risk in the ecosystem. That you can get your contract audited 20 times, but if another protocol comes out a month later, which adds some sort of capabilities to tokens that you never thought of, you're screwed. So with that, you really need active security monitoring and bug bounties. I guess bug bounties are a big thing We had a problem where one company upgraded their contracts behind ours, so even though we had no bugs, it just stopped working. I think there's going to be a lot more of that.
Yeah, and I would just also add that one of the, I mean, I'm also looking at this from like an insurance angle, but like one of the things that we see a lot is that these protocols, they just change their stuff so quickly. It's like 1 month they're building one product, and 3 months later it's something totally different, and just means that if you're always chasing the next thing, shit's gonna break. Like, just not, just to put it bluntly. And like I think the common denominator with like the protocols that people deem and so far have been proven safe, for example, Aave and Compound, is that, Compound V2 is like, it hasn't changed basically, or not significantly, because they've just been so much focused on product. And the same goes like in the stable coin landscape. There's all these algo stable coins. Lots of them are changing every month, like what the mechanism is. And there's only like a few out there that, have just kept focusing on one thing.
I have to bring bad news in that regard, right? But especially Compound is an example of continuous changes to governance, which famously introduced bugs, which is, I think it's on top 5 in the leaderboard.
Yeah, but that's stuff like, which asset are we going to add? And I know that they had the infamous Oracle bug, which happened like, a year and a half ago when markets just crapped themselves. But I think as a broader ecosystem, it's actually very stable, and like, let's see what V3 brings, but.
Yeah, this is a problem. Like, whenever you change code on chain, there is a risk. And this year's list of things which Compound was vulnerable to was adding the true USD, which has dual entry point where you could steal everything. It was a governance upgrade which dripped Compound tokens to basically anyone who called it. It was inflating the supply, of course. In that sense, it's not a direct hack, but that was, I think, I don't know how many millions. 80 millions in comp tokens. So yeah, this is just like, and they are doing very good work on the security side of things, right? So it is, I absolutely agree, this fast-moving space is one of the main problems. I have a very small tip. Infinite approvals are evil. So, and then this includes protocols, right? Because, infinite approvals you give to MetaMask because you don't want to spend that gas again. This is one way. But also, whenever you use something like Uniswap, you give infinite approval to Uniswap to use your token, and they ask for that. And many other projects do too. There is a safer way to basically always reset it after that transaction to not be exposed for all eternity to removing all your future funds if there is a bug. But yeah, there are many, many of these recommendations out there.
That's exactly, so that's, you can still override it, but I think it's responsibility of the project to be a bit more responsible, just to give a little bit less than infinite. And what we need in DeFi, I think, we need projects to think about these type of things instead of users. So I would really be happy to see that projects are thinking of security, and they buying security and offering security. So they may still give you an option, you want to use it with security or without security, but it's, I believe it's not a user who's gonna decide that he needs security, then he's gonna research the market, then he's gonna say, okay, maybe I buy this security or that security, and that can be very complex, and okay, and then he buys security for himself. So it's very difficult. I should think, I need to wake up. I think that it should be the project who is deciding which security is credible, making sure that it's very easy UI, and giving user an option just to be secured and have a little bit less return, or be unsecured.
Mm. On the topic of also smart contracts and all of this, one of the big talks of Devconnect has obviously been L2s, but also there's been a lot of hacks in kind of cross-chain and this kind of environment. What are your thoughts about, the things behind the cross-chain as one of the main attack vectors at the moment, and protecting against that?
A lot of it, that is sold to the public as cross-chain or bridge is essentially a form of a multi-sig wallet. And that's the reality that we face right now because, you know, obviously there's a lot of yield and let's call it like returns on other chains or just like swapping from one chain to the next. But what a lot of users don't know is that part of their funds are essentially stuck in a, well, are stuck on one side of the chain with a multi-sig. So there you just have all these, just call them like phishing or social engineering issues, which, I mean, that's happened a couple times in the past couple of months. So it's just something to be aware of.
Yeah, a hack.
Yeah.
It's terrifying.
It's terrifying.
Well, they control everything at such a base layer that if they get hacked, everyone's screwed. It's very scary. Yeah, and there are a lot of improvements. I know a lot of talks here about different ways to do it, and I think they'll keep improving, so hopefully it won't happen as much in the future. But it is a very scary weak point in the system, and one we definitely have to watch out for. They need to spend a lot of money on protecting those.
Yeah, well, so the following question going down that route is obviously you have the technical attacks, you have the phishing attacks, but there's also in DeFi these economic attacks, right? Where you may be trying to, one up everybody else or governance and things like that. What are your thoughts on those sorts of, this new generation of attacks that didn't exist before?
Well, that's a very interesting topic because in DeFi, projects trying to reinvent finance sometimes. So we have all good instruments like futures, options, so on. And we see a lot of new instruments which can be economically not very well designed. And some projects and some people, I'm not going to put the names, but they make 10 projects and 9 are hacked. So economically, not because the smart contract is bad. So I think that there is nothing wrong in a financial system in terms of mathematics, in terms of yield curves, in terms of instruments. Yes, there are problems in maybe over-regulating financial system, untransparency of banks, greediness of banks, so on and so on. But the future contract, basically, it's an amazing instrument. So, and I believe should be some balance between like, okay, over-engineering, over-killing, and creating something completely new, while still the old system still allows you to solve problems. Just make it transparent, just make it on a blockchain and so on.
I got a question. Did anyone ever use a flash loan and not to attack a project? So we have some users. Nice, nice. Okay.
7.
No, there's actually a decent amount here. There's a shy hand rising, so I'd say like 10 plus in this audience of perhaps, what is it? No, this is decent. This is very good because in my security mind, flash loans are like a tool for attackers. And then suddenly we have to think about everyone having billions at their hand and being able to market manipulate like crazy with no skin in the game. And I am happy that flash loans do serve a different purpose too in practice. But I would also lobby for like probably limiting the ease of access, put some cap in. Why 2 billion, right? I mean, it's probably hard. You always say like, hey, someone else will then do it. But these projects aren't only market-driven, I would say. They are also community-driven. I'll give you one famous example, Flashbots, right? So Flashbots is this project which allows you to bundle transactions. They are then going to be executed one after another, which is otherwise not possible. You can always be sandwiched, front run, whatever. So this is an attack vector. This is how you can attack smart contracts. But also, the community agreed that we want to put this tool in everyone's hand, not only in the hand of the big mining pools who anyway can do this, right? So this is something to think about. Which tools do we want to give to everyone, and where do we want to put in caps to at least limit the damage? And I can tell you, with limiting, with not having 2 billion plus in the Aave flash loan pools, some famous hacks wouldn't have been able to be executed in the way. And we haven't seen flash loan-like attacks before, when whales had the same amount of money, right? So this is something to think about.
Anything else to add about economic attacks?
Implying that flash loans are not so good instruments, just to be clear, or
they are it's like something which can be used by an attacker against a smart contract. So in that sense, they aren't good, and they are useful for other things, obviously, to allow arbitrage to everyone. But yeah, then again, I don't know if an arbitrage opportunity needs to. It's very rare, I assume, that an arbitrage opportunity is so big that 2 billion makes sense to invest and then be able to pay the fees, which aren't eligible.
Just a small example, maybe. When you buying long position on a, let's say we have DeFi, all instruments are in DeFi. When you're buying a long position and you selling a short position, it's basically the same thing. And to match those type of positions, when one wants to, let me think, sell his long position and another one wants to buy short, it's not obvious for the smart contract. And for example, how some projects are doing, they give a flash loan, they convert long into short, and then the orders can be matched, for example. And some engines work like this, using flash loan every time. So they use flash loans every second. And that's amazing, because you don't need a capital to fund these small type of things. But you can get flash loan, sort it out, done. So.
How much do you need a flash loan?
It depends on the order, so any order can be matched. That's the beauty. So if you put
what do you see in practice?
Well, the practice now, volumes are growing still in DeFi, so we see small volumes, but
like 1 million, or?
Yeah.
Okay. But
I'd like to move on to the next question. Maybe we can have a flash loans panel later. So this is the last question that I'll ask, and then I'll move to the audience questions, so vote now. The last question I have, and if you can go through this quite quickly, is bug bounties are a super important part of securing DeFi. What is one of the top tips that you could give when designing a bug bounty program to the DeFi protocols and the people building in the space?
Make a critical bug hurt. A critical bug should be big enough that it would hurt you as a company. You need to give so much incentive to bounty hunters to actually take a look at your code, and it's almost, at this point with the growth of bug bounties, it's almost more of a marketing task than just getting it out there alone. Even if you put up $100,000 or something, you have no promise that anyone's actually going to take a look at the bounty and spend time on it. And I think there are also new methods we can kind of deal with those. We recently paid a bounty hunter a fixed amount of money to look at the code for a certain amount of time, and then he also got the money from the bounty itself, if he found anything. I think you really need to focus nowadays on marketing, because it's also hard. If you put it up, no one responds, you think it's safe, but you also just don't know if no one looked at it at all. So you need to put a lot of effort to make sure people look at it.
Don't expect anyone to look at it, but expect that people who realize that there is an issue, that they then target you and will use the bug bounty to claim their rewards, right? It is not like an audit where you look into what all can be done, where are all the insecurities. It's to protect against very targeted attacks, and then there it's very effective. And then because you asked about like how to best approach it, there I'd say go to one of the, if you're a small protocol, use what's out there, which basically is go to one of the big providers and check out how they say you should onboard this, because they have excellent educational material, what to think about. This is the best I can advise.
Thank you.
Well, we all know about the bug bounties, problems, and so on, but I'm a market guy, again, and I want to say that it can be a market, and giving a bounty for bugs, you're basically selling insurance. And what I really want to see that auditors are joining this. So auditors take their money, they put skin on the game, they sell this insurance.
That's nice.
And that's the market mechanism, how I can decide that this auditor is good. So if I see that they put skin in the game, they joining selling insurance, they provide bounties as well, I'm going to do audits with them. And that's a very strong signal. Not happening at the moment, but that's a really great idea, I think.
I'd like to see that happening as well.
Yeah, I'm with Andrey. It's like focus less on the shilling and marketing and more on alignment. So,
well, let's make that happen. I think that I'd really like to see that. All right, the audience questions. So the first one's from Michael with 7 upvotes. With EIP 4337 coming, do you think it's possible for standard user wallets to shift to being smart contract based versus EOA? And will this change risk perception?
So, okay, for the general audience, perhaps. So what we see currently is a shift, especially driven through L2s, that it's not directly a wallet, your ledger, controlling your funds, but it's being done through a smart contract, which can put limits in place. And this is done primarily for technical reasons currently, not for security reasons. So I'm not aware exactly what this EIP went through, because there are a lot in this area. I can just say in general that by educating people to have smart contracts being the central entry point, you can centrally, through these smart contracts, enforce or support some limits which are very hard to do otherwise. So there is both a new risk, obviously. So one smart contract to control them all is like obviously a centralized risk, but there's also this chance to limit damages this way.
Yeah, I think I don't know if this is directly the question, but I think the smart contract wallets are great overall. I know at one point Vitalik was championing social recovery wallets. Just wallets where you had, you essentially needed someone else on a multi-sig to allow you to send funds if it's over a certain amount or if you need to do it within a certain time frame. And it adds so much security that you wouldn't have otherwise, as well as if I just lose my ledger or something, it may be gone. Whereas I could text a friend, they have it, send funds out to somewhere else. I think there's a lot of potential and much safer wallets there.
What we want is security out of the box, right? And this is one step towards it. It was mentioned before, projects should provide that. It's like don't make everyone think about it, educate them on what's needed. And the bare minimum, which you can't get away with, and then this is being drilled home. Like the 24-word thing or the 12-word thing, that is super critical. There's just no way around it without giving up like the decentralization of it. But from there on, it should be in the hands of the protocols and the chains and so on to help everyone stay as secure as possible.
Imagine you making a mailbox on Gmail, and then they say, okay, you have a mailbox, but now you need to go to the market and find a security to secure it. And good luck.
Yes. Yeah. So the next question from Anonymous is, what type of DeFi protocol is the most complex to audit? Bridges, lending, AMMs, and why is this so? If we can quickfire this one, I have another one as well.
Probably to me, but so the most complex ones are those which interact with most other DeFi projects and have to interact with them in a way where they need to trust them. Primarily, I'm thinking of like fund management tools, which kind of need to interact with all of these DeFi things to do their transactions. So the Urans of the world, these ones just are incredibly hard because of the complexity. You need to understand many, many projects. And then there are the math-heavy ones, where I'd kind of single out Curve as one of the most complex ones from the math. Yeah, these ones are both on very different levels incredibly challenging to audit.
Any other thoughts, guys?
No, I was literally gonna say the learning curve type.
God damn it.
Oh, and like the bridges and the off-chain solutions where, you know, and we're starting to see that just like aggregators of bridging solutions, which just like compound all the, so you have all the issues of the individual bridge solutions.
Yeah. The Wild West. So there's one question I'd just like a yes or a no from each of you. Are emergency shutdowns a must?
Maybe.
No.
No, but at this stage, yes.
No.
At this state of the market.
No.
Cool.
I'd
Thanks
hate
a
to
lot.
trust something which has an emergency shutdown.
Don't trust it.
It has an emergency shutdown. And I mean, the only option I had out there was to do that. Like if every protocol had it and I knew like that no matter which one I use, and there are some great, simple, fully decentralized, like no control anymore projects out there. Some stable coins like that, some like the Uniswap V2 is famous for that, right? So I really like that we have that today, and it's secure from all we can tell.
Cool. And I want to give each of you one opportunity to maybe share something with the audience, something interesting, something cool that you've seen, and then we can wrap up from there. Or words of inspiration.
Focus on building something for the long term.
Nice.
Yes, and we need more developers in Solidity. Yeah. So, and we're hiring, by the way.
Come and reach out to learn, like to learn all these super interesting things in the space, especially security, of course, because you'll be deep down in a rabbit hole very quickly, and it will be a ride you won't regret.
Innovate, use DeFi, use all the benefits that DeFi provides. Don't take finance and move it onto the blockchain. Actually create blockchain finance.
Cool. Thanks ever so much, Blaze. Please give a round of applause.